Today, I wanted to talk about why I believe Verdansk is not only not going to save Warzone, but also Call of Duty as a whole. And I know for many players, Verdansk is their last hope for Call of Duty, but at this point, I believe the player counts are struggling so much so to the point that the entire identity of what Call of Duty is going to massively and drastically change within this next 2 years, because Blame Truth has even stated that in 2026, there's actually a rumor floating around that if Verdansk does not get a certain amount of players surfacing on the player count, that Warzone itself will cease to exist with more updates going further. Sure, you'll have versions of Warzone going back on the older Call of Duties, but for many players, Call of Duty really hasn't had much of an identity ever since MW 2019 with the introduction of COD HQ. COD HQ for many players has created Call of Duty as this massive advertisement towards the store. And a lot of people don't really even enjoy playing Call of Duty, or the hype really goes away after the first couple of weeks. I'll get my friends playing on during the beta, and then literally right after a week or two, people are already moving on to different games just because there's something with the entirety of the game basing its microtransactions on being the actual way that players play, that I just doubt that people will want to continuously play $10, $20 for each of these skins. And now even with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it's upwards of like $80 just to have basic content in the game. Call of Duty has been releasing almost 365 bundles for every single day of the year to try and keep players onto the game, to try and get their checks up, going with the money revenue counts. And honestly, it just doesn't seem like Call of Duty is really what it once was. Now, I want to just say that I don't believe Verdansk is going to be anything to redeem Call of Duty, for a major reason here being because of the cheating factor. Ricochet has been updated for almost 5 years now, and it seems like there is no hope for any of the updates for this software to actually combat against cheating. And I'm going to be honest, this really started back when Modern Warfare 2019 was happening and Warzone was introduced to the game series. I really feel like with the introduction of Warzone and Battle Royale coming into Call of Duty, the community has also become incredibly toxic, and now Warzone's mechanics are bleeding into pretty much every single part of the identity of Call of Duty. I mean, even the campaigns now have elements of Warzone with attack maps, with certain type of Warzone missions. Multiplayer also has a massive reduction of focus, with the majority of it being placed onto Warzone. And already with zombies, we have rarities, we have loadouts. It is just not what Call of Duty built its original basis off of. And I'm afraid that if Verdansk doesn't actually perform, that Call of Duty is basically either going to have to go back to the drawing board, or they're basically going to have to suffer the consequences of neglecting the 3 core modes that Call of Duty once was known for quite a long time. And I have to say, Warzone has always been the bread maker for Call of Duty, but they cannot for the life of them fix the issues with the game. And it's so apparent, especially with streamers, prominent streamers such as Tim the Tatman. Tim the Tatman has said that even though Verdansk is coming back, he was one of the most popular streamers on the original Verdansk Warzone. And he even stated that even with it coming back, it is not going to bring the players back. Even Nadeshot has also stated this as well, because you can't play the actual game mode. This has also happened with the massive amounts of hackers recently in the last 5 years coming to Call of Duty, and it was really only until the Microsoft acquisition that the older games have gotten fixed. But it just blows my mind that somehow the older games have been fixed, but the new titles that they're releasing for premium prices are still not going to be getting fixed. And also, there's a lot of rumors going around now with GTA 6 potentially costing upwards of $100. And if GTA 6 actually starts this trend for Call of Duty, this would just mark the death of Call of Duty in terms of just trying to actually have fair prices. And I know already they're not fair, but man, if we got a Call of Duty game that was half baked for $100, let's say if they combat that with the GTA 6 release, because we all know the next year's release for Call of Duty is going to be a Black Ops 2 sequel, and I know so many people already are not going to want this Black Ops 2 sequel if the game is going to incorporate COD HQ. It just completely nullifies all of the personality within each of these games, and it's just so sad to see that all people want is such a harkening back towards the OG. I mean, we saw this again with Fortnite, where they went back to the OG seasons. We saw this now with Verdansk coming back, but at least Fortnite had some stability to run the servers. For goodness sakes, it's insane that the bare minimum that Call of Duty players are asking for is just a functional game at this point. And on top of all the stuff with the AI coming into the game, where they're completely getting rid of their voice actors, like, we are quite literally living in some sort of dystopian era with Call of Duty. And I know there's been a massive change in the game industry with the development basically completely swapping over with Call of Duty, because in the last 10 years, you've seen a lot of prominent figures for Call of Duty like Treyarch's David Vonderhaar leave, Treyarch's Jason Blundell leaving, and it makes you wonder, like, how exactly is Call of Duty ever going to recover? And to be honest, I don't think it is, and that is why I see all around on YouTube record low counts for viewership for Call of Duty, whether that's for zombies, whether that's for Warzone, multiplayer. It doesn't matter. People are just fed up with this system, and it's obviously time for a change, and I don't think Call of Duty is going to change anytime soon because of what they're being able to extract out of the player base with all of the money they are getting inside of it. And so honestly, to me, the only answer is to go align myself with my content in terms of a company that actually cares about its player base. Time and time again, we've seen how Activision has not only not cared about the player base, but they've reacted in harmful ways when we've wanted to create a safe game to play on these older clients like H2M, SM2. All of these games have been completely striked by Activision, and it's just so sad to see that the only way Call of Duty was ever going to be safe was by this Microsoft acquisition. And to be honest, with Verdansk, listen, I think Verdansk was the best variation of Warzone, but overall, if I were to go back in time and say if I wanted Verdansk in the game or not, I would say no, because I'd argue the modern innovation that's happened with Call of Duty is arguably what has divided the fan base more than ever. I have never seen the Call of Duty community as toxic as it is today, where people are basically at each other's throat because there is literally nothing to talk about in terms of content. I mean, even with Call of Duty Zombies, a lot of the content we've been getting recently is just them bringing back older stuff that we've seen, like Double Tap, like Death Perception, and it's just sad that for years now, this has been what has been marketed as new content, and you can see that not many people are really jiving with this anymore. And to me, listen, I believe that this is definitely going to mark the dying off season for Warzone. And it makes sense why, with the recent Black Ops 6 Season 3, that we're getting a massive delay considering what's happening. I mean, a lot of people are going to be seeing potentially the death of Warzone. And listen, for me as a Zombies player, and if you guys are Zombies players watching this to me is a net positive, because I would argue that ever since Warzone came into the stratosphere of Call of Duty, every single element and aspect has been bled into it. But also, with the way that Call of Duty has been updating their games and whatnot, does this mean that we're going to be able to come back to an era like the older days where Call of Duty was constantly in line and in tune with their player base? I don't think so. And that is why I just have very little faith, especially because so many people were extremely hyped for the Microsoft acquisition. They were saying this is going to be what realigns the Call of Duty Zombies community together, what realigns the Warzone community together, the multiplayer community together. together. And now you see so many people going back to older games. I mean, a lot of zombie YouTubers that were posting content 10 years ago aren't even around today. And honestly, it's insane because even when I go on my YouTube algorithm, one of the most successful games that's happening right now in the industry is actually Pokemon. And that's not the newer Pokemons. This is the Pokemon that came out 10 plus years ago where people are talking about it. They're getting excited about it. And so you can definitely see that the gaming community is yearning for something that we were getting 10 years ago that is not present in today's gaming stratosphere. I believe recently in the last 10 years especially, we've seen a massive decline in North American gaming populations and game devs to actually increase their sales for games. And that is why, honestly, when I look back at the last 5 years of what I've been playing a lot of Japanese games, a lot of Chinese games, a lot of Korean games. And that's not necessarily because I'm just enjoying those type of games. It's just those are the games that I think a lot of people are aligning themselves with, like Elden Ring, Marvel Rivals, these Valorant even. I know Valorant is more Riot Games. I know it's more American, but still, like, a lot of the people are just sick and tired of what the North American gaming industry is. And to me, with Verdansk coming back, it just feels like this final plea to try and get players back into the game. And ultimately, it's just sad because you have Warzone players that love COD HQ. You have the traditional Call of Duty players that don't like COD HQ, want it to go back to the original. And I would definitely align myself more in that camp. And it definitely just seems like Call of Duty is at this standstill point where we're definitely losing a lot of interest and player base for people just wanting to even see what's happening. I mean, I've never seen such record low interest even for this new Mansion Zombies map coming out for Black Ops 6. It's just really sad to look at, especially when you were in the community around 9-10 years ago when Chronicles was happening and Revelations was happening, and arguably this was the absolute peak for Call of Duty, and nothing really seems like it's ever going to actually match that. And honestly, I hope I'm wrong at the end of the day that Call of Duty can still thrive, but ultimately, I believe that Warzone has been an absolute net negative over Call of Duty as a whole, and I would love to see it die off over the years just because it has not really added anything outside of just the Battle Royale genre. And ultimately, you can definitely see over the last 5-6 years of Call of Duty that there really hasn't been too many standouts. Like, a lot of what we've been seeing as product has just been sort of average. I would say it really took until Citadel Day More in Black Ops 6 for a zombies map to actually start to wow me with how it was integrated with the game. And that's insane considering that the last map that did that was all the way back in 2018, 2019 with Black Ops 4's Ancient Evil. And so it just goes to show that something has drastically happened inside of the gaming community, and I hope that one day it can be fixed. But for now, I definitely am going to be pivoting a lot of my content to GTA, and I know a lot of people have even commented, hey, your viewer count's been looking low. Are you sure this is the best opportunity? To me, it's just a ride or die situation at this point where I feel like GTA is going to basically take over the world by storm, similarly to what Fortnite did, and I believe it is the only way really for me to upload content with the way the gaming industry is today.